Good morning, everyone. Kendall Farnum here at India Hook United Methodist Church with stories for today. We're doing some books this morning by authors and illustrators we've had already over the past few weeks, so I hope some of the pictures may look familiar or the ideas. Our first book is called How Do Dinosaurs Go to School? And we had a couple weeks ago, I think, a book called How Do Dinosaurs Say I Love You? So here we go. And again, at the beginning of this book, there are some dinosaurs with little cartoon illustrations of them to show you some of the kinds of dinosaurs that there are. How does a dinosaur go to school? Does he walk? Does he ride in a busy carpool? Dinosaur's a little big for the van, but he appears to be getting there, so that's great. Does he drag his long tail? Is he late for the bus? Does he stomp all 4 feet? Does he make a big fuss? And I see our dinosaur has his backpack as he's heading off to school. When he gets to the school, does he roughhouse and punch? Does he make a quick grab for a classmate's packed lunch? Oh boy, he's gonna get that, it looks like, which wouldn't be very polite, would it? Does he race up the stairs right ahead of the bell? And teacher's waiting here, looks like, checking the watch, so maybe we're late. Does he interrupt class with his own show and tell? Does a dinosaur yell? And it kind of looks like everybody's yelling here, doesn't it? Oh, dinosaur lost a tooth. That's why we're yelling. I see. And when in the classroom, plunked down in his chair, does a dinosaur fidget, his tail in the air? Does he growl during chalk talks or roar out of turn? Does he make it too hard for the others to learn? Does he stir up the classroom by making a noise? Does he tease all the girls? Does he pick on the boys? No. A dinosaur carefully raises his hand. He helps out his classmates with projects they've planned. At recess, he plays with a number of friends and growls at the bullies till bullying ends. He tidies his desk, then he leaps out the door. Good work. Good work, little dinosaur. All right, so that's how that dinosaur goes to school. All kinds of ideas on how he could misbehave, but then we learn that dinosaur does what teachers and parents hope and expect. And I hope dinosaur thought a lot for himself at school that day and learned things and thought about how they applied in the world and in his life. Our next book is called Walter the Baker, and this is by Eric Carle, and we've had, I think, 2 by Eric Carle. We had Mr. Seahorse and I think A House for Hermit Crab a couple weeks ago. And I don't think I've ever read this book. So, long ago, in a town encircled by a wall, lived Walter the Baker, his wife Anna, and their son, Walter Jr. Walter the Baker was known even outside the walls of the town. He was the best baker in the whole duchy. Early every morning, while everybody else was still asleep, Walter began baking his breads, rolls, cookies, tarts, and pies. Looks like he has a helper. Cat likes to watch. Cat's sitting on the warm fireplace, so that's probably comfy. Anna sold the baked goods in the store. No one could resist the warm, sweet smells coming from Walter's bakery. People came from near and far. And if you've ever gone into a bakery, it does smell wonderful. It's one of my favorite things to smell. The Duke and Duchess, who ruled over the duchy, loved Walter's sweet rolls. Every morning, Walter Jr. carried a basket full of warm sweet rolls to the castle where they lived. There goes Walter Jr. with his basket. Come here, babe. Said the Duchess, spreading quince jelly on her roll. "Ah," said the Duke, putting honey on his. And so each day was the same as the day before, until one early morning, when Walter's cat was chasing a mouse and tipped over the can of milk. "What will I do?" cried Walter. "I cannot make sweet rolls without fresh milk." In desperation, Walter grabbed a pitcher of water. "I hope nobody will notice the difference," he said, as he poured the water into the flour to make the dough. Now, you or I may not be able to tell the difference between a roll made with water and one made with milk. But the Duke, and especially the Duchess, could tell the difference. "Ugh!" cried the Duchess after she took a bite. "What is this?" roared the Duke. "Where is Walter the baker? Bring him here at once." These pages want to stick together, sorry. So Walter was brought before the Duke. "What do you call this?" roared the Duke. "This is not a roll, this is a stone." And with that he threw it at Walter's feet. "I used water instead of milk," Walter admitted, hanging his head in shame. "Pack your things and leave this town and my duchy forever," shouted the Duke. "I never want to see you again." Excuse me. "My Duke," pleaded Walter, "this is my home. Where will I go? Please give me one more chance, please." "I must banish you," said the Duke. But then he remembered Walter's good rolls and how much he and the Duchess would miss them. "Well, Walter," the Duke started to say. Then he thought and thought some more. "You may stay if you can invent a roll through which the rising sun can shine 3 times. And to make it more difficult," he added, "it must be made from one piece of dough, and most of all, it must taste good. Now go home and bring me such a roll tomorrow morning." Poor Walter. Worried and sad, he trudged back to his bakery. Walter worked all day and into the night. He made long rolls, short rolls, twisted rolls. He made thin rolls and he made fat rolls. And he worked some more. Walter beat, pulled, pushed, and pounded the dough. But it was all in vain. He could not come up with a roll that would please the Duke. By early morning, Walter had only one long piece of dough left. "It's hopeless!" he cried. In a sudden fit of anger, he grabbed the last piece of dough and flung it against the ceiling. "Stick there!" he yelled at the dough. But it didn't. It fell, twisting itself as it dropped down and plopped into a pail of water. Anna and Walter Jr. were awakened by Walter's yell and rushed into the bakery just as Walter was about to dump out the water and the twisted piece of dough. "Father, stop!" shouted Walter Jr. "Look!" And Anna quickly popped the dough into the hot oven. Soon it was brown and crisp. She took out the roll and handed it to Walter. It hadn't risen very high, but it had 3 holes. Walter held up the twisted roll and smiled. He saw that the morning sun was shining through it 3 times. Walter put the roll in his basket and rushed to the castle to deliver his invention to the Duke and Duchess. And they too saw the morning sun shine through it 3 times. Then the Duke and Duchess each took a small bite. Walter was afraid to look because he had no idea how it would taste. "Well done!" cried the Duke. "Perfect!" exclaimed the Duchess. Both were glad that Walter would not have to be sent away. And Walter, too, was happy that he could stay. "Now, pray tell us, Walter, what do you call this?" asked the Duke. "Ah, yes, pray tell us." Walter stammered as he tried to come up with a name. "What was that? Said the Duke. "Pretzel it shall be." "From now on," he declared, "it shall be sweet rolls in the morning and pretzels in the afternoon," said the Duchess. Walter returned to his bakery and spent all day and night making pretzels. The next morning there were baskets of pretzels outside the store for the whole town to taste, and a special basket of pretzels for the Duke and Duchess, and a cheer went up for Walter the pretzel maker. And that is the end. Oh, and here's a little note. It says the word pretzel comes from the Latin word brachium, meaning arm. The pretzel was originally a simple bread eaten during Lent. Its shape is based on an ancient position for prayer in which the arms were folded across the chest and the hands were placed on opposite shoulders. So that would have come from doing this when you prayed. And I never have heard that story before. Now, pretzels, I think, are quite a bit different than a sweet roll. I think of pretzels as a snack, and they're very crunchy and hard, and they do come in different shapes, so we can get them in long sticks or small sticks, but the original pretzel shape is a little twisty with their arms crossed. Our next book is called Turnip, and this is by Jan Brett, and I think the story we had by Jan Brett before was The Mitten, about all the animals fitting into a mitten during the winter. And this is another one I've never read called The Turnip, so let's see what happens here. Badger Girl was weeding the vegetable patch when she saw something strange growing in the garden. It was the biggest turnip she had ever seen. I think that's it there. Turnip soup, turnip pie, Badger Girl said. How delicious. One autumn morning, the air turned chilly. It was time to pick the vegetables and pull up the giant turnip. But when Badger Girl got to the giant turnip, she could not pull it up. Look at all the nice carrots they have. Those are lovely. Let me help, Badger Boy offered. Hang on to me, and my strong arms will pull it right out. They tugged and tugged, but the turnip stayed in place. Children, Mother Badger called, I can wrench that turnip out with a twist and a snap. Watch and learn. But the turnip remained firmly rooted. Father Badger ambled over. You'll see how easy it is when I take over, he chortled. Nothing happened. A snowflake fell from the sky, then another and another. Once the earth froze, they wouldn't get the turnip out until spring. Hang on, make sure I've got the... Yep. Hedgie was fond of roast turnip. I know what to do, he said. I'll stick my prickles into the turnip. We'll all hold hands and give it the heave-ho, heave-ho. But the turnip didn't heave or ho. There's the hedgehog. Mr. Ram, on his way to town, smiled smugly. You country bumpkins don't have the right equipment. I'll hook it with my horns. Pull, pull, pull. The turnip didn't budge. Vanya, the horse, stopped by. I am mighty strong, he whinnied. Hitch my harness to that tasty turnip, and we'll be eating it mashed and salted before it gets dark. The harness jangled, but when all was settled, the giant turnip was still in the ground. A cocky little rooster had been watching all along. He had just had a close call with a cooking pot and was looking for a new place to live. Rooster strutted over. Make room, he crowed. He took the turnip top in his beak and pulled. Down in their winter den, the bears found the giant turnip in their bed. Up, up and away, they shouted. They were pushing on it. The turnip flew out of the ground with Rooster riding high. Time for turnip pancakes browned in butter for all, Mother Badger sang out, waving her frying pan. Badger Girl put out their best yellow chair for Rooster. Soon the sizzling, crispy turnip pancakes were ready. Rooster, you are invited to stay with us as long as you wish, Father Badger announced. After all, when would we ever meet such a useful fellow again? So the rooster found a new home. Now, one thing I think is very interesting about these books is if you notice, they have a little extra illustration on the side there, and that seems to, on both sides actually, and it's got a little bit of what's going to come next. So if you see, let's look at, see this one here is about the horse pulling it, but this little illustration here is the rooster, and then on the next page is when the rooster has come and is trying to pull it out. So it's kind of a foreshadowing of what's coming next in the story. So that is the turnip. Now I've certainly never had turnip pancakes, and I've not eaten turnips very often, if at all. They're a root vegetable, they grow in the ground, like a potato, Rutabaga, I think, would be another example of that. Our next book is by Eve Bunting, and we've done, I think, a couple stories by Eve Bunting. Thunder Horse was an Eve Bunting, and I think we had another one, and I don't remember. This one is called A Picnic in October, and if you can see the picture on the front there, that's the Statue of Liberty in New York City in the harbor. So let's see what happens with A Picnic in October. And depending on where you live, a picnic in October could be a good or a bad idea if you live someplace very cold and snowy in October. Now here we go. Dad and Mom and I take the bus to Battery Park. We're carrying the stuff for the birthday picnic. Mom has the cake. It's October 28th, bright and sharp and cold. Really cold. Why do we always have to do this? I asked Mom. A picnic in October. It's dumb. This is the way Grandma wants it, Mom says. And that's the end of it. When we get to Battery Park, I see Grandma right away. She's wearing her bright green coat. She's wearing, the wind ruffles the fake fur collar around her neck. Grandpa's with her, and Uncle Joe and Aunt Louise, and my cousins, Rosa and Mike. They're loaded with picnic stuff, too. We all hug and kiss. Grandpa reaches inside his overcoat and gives Rosa and Mike and me licorice sticks. He keeps a row of them in his top jacket pocket the way other people keep pens. He's wearing his usual black hat. Rosa says he wears that hat to bed, but I don't think so. Here come the licorice sticks. We'd better hurry and get in the ferry line, Aunt Louise says. I look at the line and I can see we're going to have a long wait. We stomp our feet and blow on our hands. Across on the island, the Statue of Liberty stands, white and gleaming. She was all spruced up a few years back, Grandma says. She sure looks good for her age. That's the Statue of Liberty out there. Grandpa strokes Grandma's cheek. Like you, sweetheart, he says. Grandpa can be really soppy. Mike's holding the cake now in its see-through container. Remember last year? Remember trying to get all the candles to fit on here? I nod. We only brought 10 this time. Grandma says when you're real old, you don't care about having one for every year anyway. There's somebody doing handstands to amuse the crowd waiting in the line. Or to amuse himself, maybe. A woman with a thick braid of black hair pulls at my arm. She's wearing a long colored skirt that brushes the ground beneath her coat. There's a little girl with her and a man in loose white pants that flap in the wind. The woman tugs harder on my arm and points to the ferry, which is chugging away from the dock. She's talking to me, and I don't understand the words, but I can see she's worried. What's she saying? Mike asks me. I think she's worried because the boat's gone, I say. I smile at the woman. It's okay, I say. There will be another boat. I point at the ferry, then at the end of the line, then back at the ferry. I make a turnaround sweep with my arm. Another will come. She smiles and nods, and I can tell she understands and feels better. Mike snickers. Man, you look like a third base umpire waving your arms like that. You look like a dork. Don't be rude, Mike, Grandma says. Tony was being kind. You are not being kind. I wiggle my ears at Mike, and that makes him laugh. So Grandma gives him another disapproving stare. The next ferry comes, and we manage to squeeze on. I watch for the woman and her family, but they don't make it onto this boat. I hope they don't give up. There's the birthday cake they're taking. The grown-ups rush inside where it's warm, but we just put our stuff in there and run to the front of the boat. We pretend to throw up over the railing. There's nobody up at the bow, so we spit into the wind and see who it blows back on. Spit is lucky. You see this boat is called Miss Ellis Island. There goes the ferry across the water. Liberty Island is coming closer. The statue is getting bigger. We straggle off at the dock, lugging the picnic stuff. The island is crowded, but Dad finds a grassy spot, and the grown-ups spread the blankets. The three of us run around. That's the Verrazano Bridge, I say. Mike points. There's Brooklyn. Brooklyn is where Mike and Rosa live. Sailboats dip into the wind. There's Ellis Island, Rosa says in a reading kind of way. 17 million immigrants entered the United States of America through Ellis Island. We learned that in school. You told us last year, I say. Rosa's offended. So? Tony, Rosa, Mike, Dad calls. Chow time, Mike says. We all sit on the blankets except for Grandma and Grandpa. We brought the folding chairs for them. There's a ton of food. Our paper plates keep blowing away. We try throwing them back like frisbees, but the wind carries them in the other direction and we have to chase them again. We dump them in the trash. The ginger ale is so cold it burns my throat. Lady Liberty gazes down at us with her calm old eyes. You'd think she'd get tired holding her arm up like that, Rosa says. I groan. Give us a break. She's not real. Grandma frowns. She's not alive, if that's what you mean, but she's certainly real, and so is what she stands for. She smiles at Grandpa. It's time for the birthday. Light the candles, Luigi. The wind blows out every match Grandpa lights. The candles lean towards Staten Island and the wicks get stuck in the frosting. We straighten them and make a hands barrier between them and the wind. It's a miracle they stay lit while Dad lifts the cake for Grandma to blow them out. They go with one huff when we take our hands away. Brava, brava, Grandpa cries. Brava means you're wonderful in Italian. Bella means beautiful. Grandpa is being soppy again. I apologize, I read that wrong. I said brava, brava. What Grandpa says is brava, Bella. Brava means you're wonderful. So Bella, I think, might be her name. Dad refills our paper cups and we stand to face Lady Liberty. Happy birthday, we shout. We touch cups and drink. When I came from the old country, Grandma says, I came out here and I said, thank you, Lady Liberty. Thank you for taking me in. I spoke in Italian, of course, but she understands all languages. This is America, and I am here, and I am a part of it, I thought. She says this every time. Grandma thinks the statue is such a big deal. Grandpa leads us in the happy birthday song to Lady Liberty, and then Grandma begins to recite the famous words. Give me your poor, excuse me, I am having trouble reading this book correctly, I apologize. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. There's more. She recites them here on Lady Liberty's birthday every single year. Not much wonder she knows them by heart. Rosa does too. She's very uppity about it. Grandma blows kisses, so we feel we have to. I sincerely hope no one is watching. After that, we pack up what's left of the picnic and walk to the back part of the island called the Mall. There's a birthday program there, too. A brass band is playing. The veterans of foreign wars are having a parade. What a party Lady Liberty's having. We stay for a while, and then we come back around. I see the woman in her long, bright skirt with the man and the little girl. I grin. Look, there she is. They made it, I say. They got the ferry. Grandma nods. I bet they're new Americans. I know how they feel. They are staring up at the statue, and then the man says something, and they hold hands and bow their heads. The way they stand, so still, so respectful, so peaceful, makes me choke up. Maybe they've come to the end of a long journey, farther than just from Battery Park to Liberty Island. I put my arm around Grandma and hold my cup of ginger ale up to Lady Liberty. I think I'm seeing her for the very first time. Brava, Bella, I say. Happy birthday. And I don't care who's watching. And that is the end of A Picnic in October. So this family who, and the grandma, and I think probably the grandpa, were immigrants. They came to this country from Italy to the United States. So they have a celebration every year on the birthday of the Statue of Liberty. And the Statue of Liberty was a gift actually to the United States from the country of France. And I will post in the comments after I finish reading the whole thing that it says on the whole poem about give me your tired, your poor. All right, our last story for today, I'm going to do a little Dr. Seuss, which is always fun. This book is Yertle the Turtle and Other Stories. And I think we'll do a shorter one today, and then we'll do Yertle the Turtle next week. That's a little bit longer. Let me see. All right, so we'll do this story that is called Gertrude McFuzz. There once was a girl bird named Gertrude McFuzz, and she had the smallest plain tail ever was. One droopy droop feather, that's all that she had. And oh, that one feather made Gertrude so sad. For there was another young bird that she knew, a fancy young birdie named Lala Lee Loo. Instead of one feather behind, she had two. Poor Gertrude. Whenever she happened to spy Miss Lala Lee Loo flying by in the sky, she got very jealous. She frowned and she pouted. Then one day she got awfully mad and she shouted, "This just isn't fair. I have one, she has two. I must have a tail just like Lala Lee Loo." So she flew to her uncle, a doctor named Dake, whose office was high in a tree by the lake, and she cried, "Uncle Doctor, oh please do you know of some kind of a pill that will make my tail grow?" "Tut, tut," said the doctor, "such talk, how absurd! Your tail is just right for your kind of a bird." Then Gertrude had tantrums. She raised such a din that finally her uncle, the doctor, gave in, and he told her just where she could find such a pill, on a pillberry vine on the top of the hill. "Oh, thank you," chirped Gertrude McFuzz, and she flew right straight to the hill where the pillberry grew. Yes, there was the vine, and as soon as she saw it, she plucked off a berry. She started to gnaw it. It tasted just awful, almost made her sick. But she wanted that tail, so she swallowed it quick. Then she felt something happen. She felt a small twitch, as if she'd been tapped down behind by a switch. And Gertrude looked round and she cheered. It was true! 2 feathers! Exactly like Lala Lee Loo. Then she got an idea. "Now I know what I'll do. I'll grow a tail better than Lala Lee Loo. These pills that grow feathers are working just fine." So she nibbled another one off of the vine. She felt a new twitch, and then Gertrude yelled, "Whee! Miss Lala has only just 2. I have 3. When Lala Lee Loo sees this beautiful stuff, she'll fall right down flat on her face, sure enough. I'll show her who's pretty. I certainly will. Why, I'll make my tail even prettier still." She snatched at those berries that grew on that vine. She gobbled down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and she didn't stop eating, young Gertrude McFuzz, till she'd eaten 3 dozen. That's all that there was. Then the feathers popped out with a zang, with a zing. They blossomed like flowers that bloom in the spring, all fit for a queen. What a sight to behold! They sparkled like diamonds and gumdrops and gold, like silk, like spaghetti, like satin, like lace. They burst out like rockets all over the place. They waved in the air and they swished in the breeze, and some were as long as the branches of trees. And still they kept growing. They popped until long about sundown, when finally they stopped. "And now," giggled Gertrude, "the next thing to do is to fly right straight home and show Lala Lee Loo. And when Lala sees these, why, her face will get red, and she'll let out a scream, and she'll fall right down dead." Then she spread out her wings to take off from the ground, but with all of those feathers, she weighed 90 pounds. She yanked and she pulled and she let out a squawk, but that bird couldn't fly, couldn't run, couldn't walk. And all through that night she was stuck on that hill, and Gertrude McFuzz might be stuck up there still if her good Uncle Dake hadn't heard the girl yelp. He rushed to her rescue and brought along help. To lift Gertrude up almost broke all their beaks, and to fly her back home it took almost 2 weeks. And then it took almost another week more to pull out those feathers. My, Gertrude was sore. And finally, when all of the pulling was done, Gertrude behind her again had just one. That one little feather she had as a starter. But now that's enough, because now she is smarter. And that is the end of Gertrude McFuzz. So, learning that being jealous of what other people have is not very, very good for you. And Gertrude had enough. She had the feather on her tail that she needed to fly. And I was sad that her uncle, the doctor, gave in to her tantrum, because that's not a good way to get things that you want or that you need. And when people say no to something, they should stick with the no. That is it for today. We'll have more stories for next week. I hope you have a safe and wonderful week. Stay well and stay safe. Love the people around you. And remember that you are loved. Bye-bye.